Silence, please. Okay, we can start. Okay, good evening, good afternoon. Good evening to everyone. Thank you all for coming here today. It's a pleasure to me to be here in this beautiful hall of the Center of American Studies. Let me briefly introduce myself. I'm Vittorio Calaprice. I work in the European Commission representation in Rome, the embassy of the European Commission here in Italy. I'm in charge of communicating the European digital ecosystem and in particular the European cybersecurity issues here in the representation. So, thanks to the Festival of Diplomacy for inviting me to moderate and to lead this panel that will be focused on the EU cybersecurity strategy. That it's, let me say, a very interesting topic, but also a huge theme. So, to better understanding this subject, I asked to the organizer to show you this full overview that is in background on the cybersecurity ecosystem. It's a snapshot which summarizes the four main pillars where the European Commission is working on. It's just for your convenience, but just to show you how is articulate the role of the European Commission into cybersecurity. The first pillar is one of the most important, is the resilience, all the issues related to the resilience. The second one on law enforcement, with the role, of course, of the main law enforcement agency, in particular the Europol. The third one is the cyber defense, that it's growing of importance, especially after the strategic compass. And the cyber diplomacy, that is the fourth pillar, and also the external action of the cybersecurity. Oh, now let me say that today we are very lucky because we could hear and listen by four high-level experts that is the member of this high-level panel. So let me introduce our, not guest, but our speaker. First of all, I would like to introduce Mr. Tanel Sepp. Mr. Tanel Sepp is the Cyber Estonian Ambassador at Large for Cyber Diplomacy since January 2022. He's at the same time Director General of the Digital and Cyber Diplomacy Department. It's a real pleasure to meet you, Mr. Ambassador. Applause. Then I would like to introduce Mrs. Laura Carpini. Mrs. Laura Carpini currently is the head of the Cyberspace Policies and Security Unit at the Foreign Affairs Ministry, and they're also president of the DID, the Italian Diplomatic Women and Managers Association. Thank you, Mrs. Carpini, to stay with us. Then I'm very glad also to introduce Mrs. Rahav Shalom Revivo. She's the head of the Financial Cyber Innovation and International Engagements Unit at the Israeli Ministry of Finance. Thank you, Mrs. Revivo, to stay with us. And last but not least, I would like to introduce Mrs. Stefania Ducci. She's a senior officer working at the strategic division of the Industrial, Technological, Research and Training Program Service at the National Cybersecurity Agency. Thank you to stay with us. Okay, our talk will be divided in two parts. So, in this first part, each speaker will talk on her point of view about her role or the role of the country or the unit in the cybersecurity framework. After this part, that will last 40-50 minutes in total, there will be time for you for a Q&A session. So I suggest to the public, to the students, to elaborate their questions and possibly to identify, when I will give the floor, the best speaker that could answer your request or deeper clarification on some topics. So let's get started. Ambassador Sepp, as we all know, Estonia is at the forefront of the cybersecurity landscape. How did it change due to the Russian war to Ukraine? And could also you talk about some trends in the current political landscape that you see relevant to our discussion? The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and it's actually my second time to be at this diplomatic festival. I was here, I think, 2019, when I was dealing with cyber issues at the Estonian Ministry of Defense. So I have experience also from more hardcore security, cyber, and now I'm dealing with a diplomacy part. First of all, what I wanted to tell you is kind of a reminder that we need every day today. We are all in a quite awful war. The military aggression by Russia against Ukraine, it is against all of our core principles. It's against a country that really wants to choose its own path, and Russia does not allow to do it. And we have been quite vocal about this military aggression because Russia is our neighbor, it is affecting us directly, and we are doing as much as we can to support Ukraine. Also in cybersecurity, because Ukraine has been surprisingly quite developed in its e-services, building up its digital nation, and we have been trying to help Ukrainians to keep it up. In Estonia, we had our first major cyber attacks in 2007. That's already 15 years ago. And sometimes I find myself quite surprised when people say that cyber is important or cyber is a kind of a new thing. No, it's not a new thing, and it is important, but it's a mainstream topic, and we should all take it as a mainstream topic. And there are a couple of things that we learned in 2007 that are so relevant also today. One is that if you develop really intensively your digital nation or your e-governance, your e-services, you really become vulnerable. And it's easy to continue putting things online, but then you also have to invest heavily in the defense measures. And that's what we have been also doing in Estonia, but other countries also have been doing this. I can say that also this year we have had some major cyber attacks against Estonian institutions, but thanks to some of these measures, these attacks have not been so successful. So it needs money, it needs political will to really defend yourself. Now, as cyber ambassadors, we have kind of our club. We see each other in New York when we talk about how international law applies in cyberspace. We have some other coordination meetings talking about more serious security questions. But furthermost, I think our role is also to raise awareness. How cyber is relevant to different topics and fields. So that's why I was happy also to come here to talk about it. I was just having a second look at the slide. I've seen it before also, and the slide is quite a good overview of what is happening. However, I do believe that this is not the entire truth or entire picture. I'm not saying that something is missing here, but you can have resilience, law enforcement, cyber defense, and cyber diplomacy, but on many occasions, all these fields might be blurred. There might be overlappings. This year, we saw a massive ransomware attacks in Costa Rica. These were ransomware is usually considered to be a cybercrime issue. That you have some criminals who encrypt your data and then demand some ransom for decryption. So it could be really this law enforcement issue here. But these ransomware attacks were so severe that Costa Rican government took it as a national security issue. So we go to all of the pillars, actually. So the lines are not so clear anymore. And this is one of these trends that I see that we really need to look in a flexible way at what we're dealing with. And at the same time, there are new vectors, threat vectors coming out, and perhaps we don't know what's tomorrow's major threat. So it can be also somewhere in between these pillars. So this also means that we all need to work together in different agencies, with the companies, with civil society, and really to see the most optimal way how to deal with. Another big trend, and this is kind of my present mantra, it's about the role of big tech, or these big tech companies like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, who are active in all of the countries. And Microsoft, for example, within the Russian aggression against Ukraine, they have produced a lot of different reports on the cyber threats, how Russians have been using cyber tools. It has usually been the state's prerogative, actually, to say what is happening. But now you have private sector telling the states the information. And at the same time, we are all thinking about also cloud computing, how we are storing our pictures in iCloud. But if you take that to the government level, we are always thinking, how can we be more resilient and not keep data in just one server, but also in other places? And we're also talking about national cloud solutions. How can a government keep its data in a private cloud managed by some company? Lots of different questions here. My last point here is a point that I made also last time when I was speaking here. It's about cyber defense and how we can defend ourselves. There's been a lot of talk and actually re-emerging talk about offensive capabilities. How do we look at these things? Civil society usually immediately says that no offensive capabilities. These are not. This is offensive to the interests of people. The government, however, has to do everything to defend its own infrastructure and this digital nation. So imagine you need to defend physically your piece of land. You buy a tank to defend it. Cybersecurity without offensive capabilities would would be like having this tank, but without the turret and the big gun. So what do? You stack up the tanks and build a wall? I don't know. So there are several myths related to cybersecurity, but with this one small myth, I wanted to end my introduction. But happy to reply to any questions afterwards, of course.
Thank you, Ambassador Sepp. You open also to several critical points in this overview. Now I will move to Ambassador Carpini. Where are we and where are we going in the cyber cooperation in the external action? How is it challenging working at Foreign Affairs Cyber Unit during these difficult times? The floor is yours.
Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. I'm very happy to be here, and thanks for the invitation. Well, where are we? Where are we going? These are big questions indeed. I will begin by telling you a little bit more about cyber diplomacy and how it was sort of created or defined the way we work on it right now. Well, my Estonian colleague explained very well the impact that digitalization has had on our lives and the expansion, therefore, and subsequently of the surface of attack. The more you get online, the more you expose yourself, your system, your data, your everything. And the more our life is digitized, the more we are potentially a target for an attacker. An attacker can be a state actor or can be a criminal, can be any sorts of actor. So this means that with the creation of a huge space, cyberspace and digital space, states and relevant actors like big companies, individuals are constantly interacting online. They have different interests, they have different objectives, and that creates room for potential conflicts, misunderstandings, you name it, incidents, especially incidents, and this at international and global level, because one very important thing that my colleague said earlier was that lines are blurred, and so are boundaries. The notion of boundary that we know in the physical world doesn't apply to cyberspace. So if we're here, we are working on a computer, we send a signal in a matter of seconds, it reaches the other side of the world, another server. So you see those lines that we have, like from Italy, if you walk, you have to reach either 12 miles from the coast or the Monte Bianco gallery to reach a boundary, a frontier. That's not the case in cyberspace. So all these different interests and different potential conflicts or incidents happen in a very global environment, and therefore international countries are more potentially involved, and therefore how do countries interact and try to compose their interests? They use diplomacy. So that's why this topic has become not only a topic, a very important issue of national security, because as we say, we need to protect ourselves, we need to be resilient, we need to defend ourselves, but it's also a topic of foreign policy, where people, countries do interact and try to compose and find the solution of their different interests. So gradually in the international system, many countries have established units, divisions, departments, structures within their own ministries that have started to deal with all these topics. And that's what happened also in the case of Italy, when this division has been established at the end of 2019, which is late by Estonian standards, because as you said, the importance of cyber issues is not new, although the general public, especially in certain region of the world, is becoming aware of the importance of this topic only very recently, but it is there, and again, it deals primarily with the issues, the impact of cyberspace, the creation of cyberspace and digitalization on international relations. And we have a lot of different aspects. We have the solution of attribution of incidents, of malicious activities, but also economic developments to deal with, or legal, because all this transformation has provoked and created a lot of question marks and need for new definitions or new legal behavior. And in fact, the question of international law is one of the aspects that in cyber diplomacy we more often look at, because we have designed a new space. We have international law that has been consolidated over the centuries, but it was created when cyberspace was not there. So the big question so far has been, what do we do? Do we act in cyberspace according to what we have created, the rules that we had in international law? The answer for us is always yes, because we can't think of living in a vacuum, and what we have, like the Charter of the United Nations, contains principles that have been recognized by all states and apply also in cyberspace. For instance, Chapter 6 of the Charter of the United Nations. Countries, states must resolve their controversies peacefully. Can we possibly say that even if the Charter was approved in the 40s, if we have an incident in cyberspace, we don't apply the same principles? No, we go on with what we have, we preserve this framework, and we discuss the ways we apply these important milestones in nowadays and in the new space. So this is just an overview of the big questions that the creations of cyberspace entail. But to go back at the European level, the EU has made cyber diplomacy one of its priorities, and it's part of the cybersecurity strategy, precisely because of all the important issues that I've just described. And going back to the cybersecurity strategy, one important element and one feature and one tool that I would like you to know about is the cyber diplomacy toolbox. What's the cyber diplomacy toolbox? It's what it is, a toolbox, like a set of instruments that diplomats in the EU can use, get together when they have a problem, an incident, they need to respond or to start a process that concerns cyber diplomacy. The toolbox is practically a series of measures, steps, actions that can be taken collectively at the EU level to, again, either respond or prevent something to happen in cyberspace. In fact, it contains preventive measures, stability measures, cooperative measures, and most importantly, responsive measures. And I like to mention this because if boundaries are blurred, actors are very cunning, and it's very difficult to identify the responsible actor for a malicious activity. an incident or an attack that can paralyze your system and make you lose your data. So what the EU has tried to do with its responsive measures is to create some accountability and impose a cost to those who don't behave according to the responsible behavior in cyberspace. And in fact, we have also a set of restrictive measures, a regulation that has enabled the European Union to apply some sort of sanctions against some actors that were considered responsible for, in two cases, both in 2020. One was against some Russian officials that were found guilty of trying to hack the organization on the prohibition of chemical weapons. And the second time, and there were also some Chinese and North Korean companies, and the second time was against the still Russian actors that were responsible for hacking the mobile phones of the parliamentarians in Germany. So that's something concrete that has been done. There's much more to do, and I think I've spoken for this round a lot, and I'll stop here and happy to take questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Carpini. This international overview, let me allow me to stay on this international cooperation, international issues, because I would like to introduce and to give the floor to Director Revivo, starting to some data. According to the ENISA, the European Union Cybersecurity Agency, cyber threats and to the financial system are growing, and the global community must cooperate to protect it. You are an expert on financial cyber and fintech, and you have established the Financial Cyber International Engagement Unit at the Israeli Ministry of Finance. What are you doing to create such cooperation? And do you see this as an important factor for cybersecurity and the stability of the financial ecosystem? I give you the floor.
Thank you. So first of all, it's great to be here. I participated in this festival last year through Zoom. So it's great to be back and feel that there was no COVID in our lives. And these are great questions. The Israeli Ministry of Finance is focused on three main areas that are related to cybersecurity protection of the financial ecosystem. The first one is the operational support to the financial institutions. The second one is innovation. And the last one is crisis management of dramatic cyber incidents within the financial ecosystem. So with the first one, the operational, we have a financial center. It's called Financial CERT, C-E-R-T, Cyber Emergency Response Team. This is an operational center owned by the government that is all of the financial institutions in Israel are voluntary connected to it, and they receive services from us. It can be information sharing services, it can be support in cases of incidents, and so on. We are also focused on innovation, not only on cyber innovation. In Israel is known as Startup Nation and Cyber Nation, not only cyber innovation, but also making sure that all of the financial innovation, fintech, is developed in a secured manner to make sure that from day one, the new products, new solutions, new services are entering the financial ecosystem in a secured manner. So as an example, we have a Fintech Cyber Innovation Lab, which is a program that is owned by the government, but the private sector won a tender and is running it. And we have MasterCard together with Enel from Italy, owning the lab and running it in reality. And they receive from us mentoring, support, and even financial cyber data that is owned by the government. The last piece is the understanding that cyber incidents and crisis in the ecosystem that is caused by cyber demands different type of understanding when it comes to handling the incident. And for example, when you speak with a financial leadership and you're saying, okay, there is an earthquake, there is a fire, there is a problem, they manage to overcome that, they find solutions to that. But when it comes to cyber, it's like a black box. No one really knows what is working and what is not working, whether the attacker is in your network or not, did you manage to overcome the incident, and so on. So we have created methodologies and understanding of how to run cybersecurity exercises to the financial leadership, meaning to the Minister of Finance, to the governor of the central banks, to all of the financial regulators, together with the cyber leaders and entities within the country. And we talked about collaboration, and we see the very key pillars that are part of the cybersecurity, EU cybersecurity ecosystem. And we understand that there are two main core values that we follow. The first one is that we need to share information, even if that information is shared in one direction at the beginning. So the first core value that we believe in, that we follow, is sharing is caring. And we share not only with the local ecosystem, Israeli financial institutions, but also with the international ecosystem. The second type of value that we follow is that collaboration is key. You both talked about boundaries that do not exist anymore. See, I'll give you an example. At the beginning of the Russia-Ukraine war, there was an attack on Ukrainian routers, internet routers, that stopped functioning at all. But this attack didn't stop there. In reality, there were German routers using the same version, and thousands of German wind turbines stopped reacting and connecting to their technicians that are tried to control it from remote because of the fact that the router stopped functioning. So cybersecurity incidents and attacks do not see boundaries between countries and do not see boundaries between sectors. Even if we'll find a very good solution for the financial sector, we can still be infected from other sectors. So following these understandings, we have been doing several things that are related to collaboration. And with the collaboration, we understood that, and this is the second core value, that it takes a network to defeat a network. We need to work together with like-minded organizations, countries, even with the private sector. You mentioned the big tech. This is part of the ecosystem, the reality, in order to be able to block and to protect ourselves better and to block cyber attacks. And we want even to take that collaboration into actual teamwork, not only speak about and share information, but actually react in case of need together. So one example to that is a financial search forum that we have established, a forum of financial operational centers. We have the Italian financial cert together with us, together with the Swiss financial cert and the Nordic financial cert, all operate differently and similarly to ours. And another example is the multilateral exercise that Israel led last year and is running again. This is an exercise, financial cyber exercise, dedicated to the financial ecosystem. Last year we had, and the participants are the finance ministries and the leaders of the finance ministries. So we have the Italian Ministry of Finance and Economy together with us in that work, together with the United States and United Kingdom Ministries of Finance, together with Germany, Switzerland, Thailand, the Netherlands, and more. We have 10 finance ministries, 3 global important key financial organizations, all collaborating on how to overcome a specific scenario. Now, all of the problems are known in the scenario itself. Everyone knows in advance. We're not testing anyone. But what we're doing is we are trying to create the collaboration channels that are needed between each countries and each focal point in order to be able to act upon these channels in case of need. So we ran this simulation last year in December, and in the coming December we have another version of it. In the previous one we had the financial leadership participating, so it was like the third in command in the finance ministry from each country participating, and now we have the more working level people participate, collaborating together in order to overcome an attack. And I can most certainly invite Estonia, if your ministry will be interested, to be part of that collaboration as well.
Thank you, Mrs. Director Revivo. Very interesting issues. Now, I would like to move to Mrs. Stefania Ducci. She will show us a presentation by slides. Yes, Mrs. Ducci, last year Italy has established its own cyber agency and has released a national strategy for 2022-2027 period. How will the agency articulate this strategy within the EU framework? Which are its main strengths? The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. I would just would like to draw your attention on the fact that also our Italian institutional cybersecurity framework is composed by 4 pillars. You can see here. We have cybersecurity and resilience represented by our agency, the National Cybersecurity Agency, so SCN. The crime prevention and contrast represented by our law enforcement agencies, so the National State Police, Carabinieri Corps, and the Financial Police. And then we have also military security and defense, which is under responsibility of the Ministry of Defense, and in particular of the Joint Command for Network Operation. And then also we have the intelligence community with the DIS, so the Intelligence Information and Security Department, and the 2 intelligence agencies, ISE and ISI. And then of course we have also cyber diplomacy, which is transversal to all these 4 pillars, and which plays a pivotal role in the cybersecurity system. All these actors are part of the National Cybersecurity Cell, which is chaired by our Director General, Professor Roberto Baldoni, which is the cell responsible for the management of national cybersecurity crisis and also for prevention activities. But all these actors have also an active role in the implementation of the National Cybersecurity Strategy. Indeed, even if our agency is quite new, because it was established in June of the last year, indeed it became operational on the 1st of September 2021. In May of this year, our Prime Minister adopted this strategy, which was drafted by our agency. So the strategy is composed by 2 documents. In the implementation plan, you can find 82 measures to be implemented by 2026. The challenges we face in the strategy are threefold. We have the cyber attack risk. Indeed, the cyber attacks, as you may know, are carried out by cyber criminals, activists, but also state actors who exploit, for example, software vulnerabilities, misconfiguration of, for example, of protocols, but also human weaknesses. So they perform cyber attacks and cyber campaign like the ransomware campaign previously mentioned. And we also, however, the technological risk. Indeed, nowadays, technologies are produced by large companies that sometimes are developed in countries where their government perform a control over those companies. And this can lead to an interference with the ICT cyber supply chain.
both in terms of availability of those ICT components on the market, but also in terms of their reliability. And then we have the disinformation risk. Think, for example, to the exploitation of artificial intelligence for realizing deep fake campaign, for example, on the social networks. So in the strategy, we challenge all these risks, and by anticipating the evolution of cyber threats, managing cyber crisis management, and also, we want to achieve a national and European digital strategic autonomy. This is a very important point that is also stressed in the EU cybersecurity strategy of the December 2020. And of course, we also deal with tackling online disinformation, also in relation to cyber threats. So our the goals that we aim to achieve are threefold. So we have protection, response, and development. There are many measures here are grouped on the basis of the main topics. And of course, I would like to also to draw your attention the fact that on the, we can say, the most challenging measure, so the creation of a national cybersecurity campus, that take inspiration, for example, to the similar campus that were developed, for example, in France, but also by Israel, and for research and development activities, essentially, in order to produce strategic technologies, like, for example, an infrastructure, national infrastructure for communication. And we have also measures that we call enabler, and they are related to national and international cooperation, but also to cybersecurity training and awareness. These are important because with those appropriate cyber skills and capabilities, we can achieve all the other measures. Public-private partnership is a very important part of our strategy. Indeed, we can say that 80% of our measures are based on PPPs. And the beneficiaries, you can see here the colored bullet represented the beneficiaries of the measure. There are not only public administration and private operators, but also the civil society. Indeed, our strategy applies a whole society approach, involving, of course, on voluntary basis, citizens, for example, by attending online training courses, and also being the target of cybersecurity awareness campaign. And I would like also to tell you about some projects we are carrying out, because some measures are funded through the National Recovery Resilience Plan, in particular under the investment 1.5 dedicated on cybersecurity. So the goal is to improve the resilience of our national infrastructures and also to enhance the skills. So we have a first project stream in order to, that was funded through 174 million euros, both for the establishment of our agency, but also for the implementation of the national security perimeter for cyber, and also for the implementation of the EU directive for the security of network information systems. So through this fund, we activate this a central audit unit at the SCN. So this is very important in order to increase the maturity level of the cybersecurity posture both of our administration, but also of private operators. And also for the creation of an HyperSOC, which is a Center for Cyber Threat Detection and the analysis of emerging cyber risk that exploit high-performance computing and technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning, but also we would like to create a network of information sharing and analysis centers, so ISAC, dedicated to cybersecurity, and also a network of computer emergency response teams at territorial level, integrated with the computer security incident response team established at our agency. We have also second project stream on national resilience cyber intervention in order to leverage the cybersecurity of and cyber defense of public administration with different kind of intervention, and with an amount of funds for 1.57 million euros. And a third project stream aimed at, first of all, capacity building of the National Assessment and Certification Center established at our agency, and also for the creation of the assessment center within the Ministry of Interior and Defense, but also for the creation of laboratories, network of laboratories, for screening, assessment, and technology certification. So this will allow us not only to properly implement the national law on the cybersecurity perimeter, but also to implement the European cybersecurity certification framework. So let me conclude with this slogan. So let's bring our country into the future through an appropriate cyber risk management, because this is a foundation for our country prosperity and independence. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Ducci. Now you have a great occasion in your life to pose questions, because we have now half an hour, 40 minutes to open to your questions and answers by the speaker. So please, first of all, identify and introduce yourself. If you are interested in more clarification, this is the opportunity to exchange. Okay, perfect. Name and...
So good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for your speeches. My name is Paolo Mattei. I'm a global governance student, second year. And my question is to Ambassador Carpini. And it is about the cyber diplomacy toolbox, because you mentioned it, and I was curious about how it is formed and which is, which is the role of international law in this diplomacy toolbox, and where you pick the norms to compose it, and also if there is a margin of arbitration of decision and interpretation of the norms inside it. Thank you.
Okay, so the toolbox is formally and legally an act of the European Union Council. So it is, to give you a concrete idea, is a document where it's a council conclusions, and then there are guidelines for implementations where all these measures are listed. And to be specific and to give you an example, there is, for instance, in the preventive measures, within the preventive measures are listed dialogues, for instance, dialogues with a third country, like the EU as an international organization, an actor, establishes dialogues on cybersecurity with third countries. And this is what I meant when I said that it contains a series of traditional diplomatic measures. We're going, for instance, we're talking about issuing declarations, like if you're not happy with what has happened somewhere, like for instance, last declaration from the High Representative, there was one on the Viasat, of course, accident. So that's when the EU speaks openly to a wider community, and that's a form of diplomatic actions like flagging that we're condemning something. But then it could be, for instance, also summoning the ambassador of one country to Brussels, or doing traditional diplomatic démarches, like you send instructions to your embassy, to the EU delegation, to go and talk to the authorities of that country for whatever reason. So it's basically a compilation of traditional measures with the addition of the restrictive measures that are sort of sanctions that I mentioned earlier, and they are also so the novelty is not in the compilation, not in the measures, but in the compilation. And that's something that in an environment that is, and in a field of diplomacy that is relatively new, and where cooperation needs to be really worked upon, it's important for 27 different countries that have to gather together and find an agreement, also already to know where to look at. So it seems a bit obvious, but it's not, believe me, because it's also important to have references and like a library book, right? Where you can also, and so go gradually pick up the measure that is more adequate to the situation, to the gravity, or to the context of the diplomatic objective you want to reach. Not to want to achieve, not necessarily you always want to respond, possibly because there's nothing to respond to, but you just want to establish a cooperation with one country because you think it's important to have that kind of cooperation. So the international law in it's, well, first of all, being an international organization's document, it's based on international law per se, ultimately, but the consolidation of the applicability of international law in cyberspace has always been one of the priority topics and policies of the EU. So I honestly don't recall exactly if there is a paragraph dedicated to, not in the toolbox, because the toolbox is more the tools. And the priority on international law is a topic of diplomacy and of foreign policy of the EU, external action. So, and that you will find it in all relevant documents, like for instance, recently in Council conclusions, in the EU cyber posture, and in all relevant political documents of the EU. I don't know, perhaps. Want to complement?
If I can add one element here, again, what Russia is doing in Ukraine, this is really substantial right now, and this will have consequences for the future. What we have to do now is not to take cyber as a separate issue here, but really look also at cyber attacks in a kind of compilation of other aggressive attacks, or the whole military situation, because we used to be talking about in theoretical terms of somebody attacking or using cyber as an integrated tool within the kinetic attack. Now it's a reality, and we need to really look at our policies and to make sure that the policy framework catches up this.
Okay, second question. Okay. Your name? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gokul. I'm a global governance second-year student from India. My question is specifically to Director Revivo. Ma'am, as you are the head of financial cyber innovation in the Ministry of Finance, Israel. So I have a question specifically about Israel. There is a spyware that was developed by the Israeli NSO, full form Niv Shalev Omri. I'm sorry for the wrong pronunciation. It was named Pegasus, and it caused a lot of controversy in the last 2 to 3 years. There are allegations, number one, against the Israeli government that it killed human rights activists and was used to spy on its own citizens. Second, there were also allegations against the government of Saudi Arabia that it played a part in killing Saudi journalist and dissident Jamal Khashoggi. And it also caused a lot of debate in my own country about surveillance capitalism, because there were, of course, allegations against the government of India that had used for malfunctioning purposes. So I just want to know your perspective of Israel on this. And of course, these are all allegations, so we don't know what the truth is, and I guess we will never know. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a challenging question. And I cannot tell Israel's perspective on this because this is not my role. And I cannot rightfully represent this. There is an international law, and there is a definition of what can be done and cannot be done. And we are all following that.
A diplomatic answer. Okay. Is there another? Okay, please.
Good morning, everyone. I am Gislain, a student coming from France, and my question is related to the development of the 5G. Faced to the divergence regarding the empowerment of Huawei and the cyber risks that it brings in Europe, does the European Union will agree on a common supplier without any risk for our sovereignty and our security? Thank you.
So maybe I can direct, I'm not representing Europe as well, but 5G is something that is, and it comes back to the big tech eventually, and the fact that we need to collaborate together with the private sector and with the big tech companies in order to define the way that all of us will operate in the cyberspace. So I can refer you to Prague 5G conferences and information. It contains a lot of European countries that are participating in it, including Israel, including the United States, and you'll find many others. I think somewhere around 32 countries, if I remember correctly, but I might get the number wrong. And it defines the way, the challenges that we have in order to make sure that we maintain the stability and the maintain our control and power over what we want to happen and not happen in our countries. And you can find many echoes of that as well. So the Prague 5G conference is an example, and this year it will be the 4th year that they will meet together in order to discuss that. You can find pieces of it in the new cybersecurity strategy by the UK that is referring to the need of having companies being developed in their own country in order to be able to make sure that it follows the right direction. So there are many places that you can find it. I don't know whether...
Well, generally, I mean, I don't follow negotiations on domestic EU regulations on cyberspace and cybersecurity standards, but it's true that there's a lot of work going on for the EU to have a common standard of a definition of security requirements for technologies. So I'm sure that these processes will be completed all soon. And although cybersecurity is always evolving, like technology is always evolving, there will be constant adaptations. But one thing I want to point out is that so far, and I would be surprised if this would change, the EU has always worked on standards and definitions of what we want to achieve in terms of security, and never ever in terms of vendor, you in and you're out, because that's, we have to combine and respect both our security standards at the same time the free market that we are. So it will be played along these lines, I'm sure.
Yeah, in this regard, I can add that at EU level, we have the Cybersecurity Act, which was adopted in 2019, that established a cybersecurity certification framework. So on which basis it will be developed certification schemes for specific product, processes and services. And also take into consideration that is under negotiation another act, which is the Cyber Resilience Act, always at EU level, which is strictly related with the Cybersecurity Act. So, but this is under, negotiation. It is just a bit the beginning of the process. So we will see what will be the output. But it regards not only 5G, of course, but ICT components, procedures, and services in general. So.
Someone else okay. There.
Good evening, thank you to be here. I'm Cristina Chiarafiore, a colleague of my other guys, so second year of global governance, and I wanted to ask an opinion on how can all the countries and even the European Union to keep up with the speed of the technological innovation, since we know in particular in the legislative field, since we know that there are always long process to accept a new law and technology is way more fast. So thank you.
Someone else?
The answer is quite simple. Money. We should invest really in this basic research. We're talking about AI right now, the use of AI to how we can actually make it useful for us, for ourselves, but at the same time not to lose control of it. And second part, of course, is quantum computing. And here, I think we all collectively need to do more, because you have China that is kind of leaping ahead with its own research, and for us it's more difficult in the sense that we're all separate countries. In China, there's one big country, and it's easy for the government to decide how to spend its money. Especially as they're not even looking for any transparency in this. But we have our core values, and we need to also respond to our political leaders in using our money. So it's more tricky for us to spend more, but I think also European leaders are getting this point, that this is kind of next step.
Yes, I think that the EU has it clear. In fact, one of the priorities of the Commission is a Europe fit for digital age, which includes a lot of investments of innovation. And as Jana will say, it's not that easy for us because of being 27 different countries. In cybersecurity, perhaps I would mention the establishment of the Cybersecurity Competence Center in Bucharest, that it's not only a center for harmonizing procedures and so on and so forth, but also would serve as a hub for innovation, and it will be connected to one national cybersecurity center in each country. So this is taking place, and perhaps I think that one question that we might all ask ourselves, and here I'm really speaking on a personal, in my personal capacity, is that we probably have to define really the goal, because if we think that we are going to just try to catch up with everything, I'm afraid it won't work. So a good selection of objectives where we can find a competitive advantage, I think would help us a lot. And I'm sure that Israel has perhaps some good recipes and advices for that. Thank you.
So my answer to that is that law and regulation can never keep up the pace of technology. Technology will be promoted by the private sector and will be promoted by economic reasons, and it will promote faster. We need to have our laws and regulation in place in a generic enough manner that we will be able to enforce them, sometimes on a case-by-case basis, on dramatic different problems, reasons. But they need to be generic enough on top of investing the money and investing in the collaboration in order to be able to have the right knowledge, personnel, and so on. Another thing that is coming to more and more to our lives, it's already there, but it is becoming stronger and stronger, is the private-public partnerships. And here again, sometimes a lot of times, the private sector is faster than the government with regards to the analysis and the understanding and the implications of technology developments and technology capabilities. And here as well, we need to work together, this time with the private sector, in order to keep the governmental and the legislation answer to that in the right pace.
So the key word is public-private partnership in cybersecurity especially.
It's critical.
Okay, someone else? Otherwise, I can also, I try also to ask you, from your point of view, what your unit or country could provide to attract talents, to provide job opportunities for the young people, for the students, into the cybersecurity sector. What is your opinion on what we are doing? Next year will be the European Year of Skills. So the President Ursula von der Leyen asked to the member states to reinforce the framework of skills. And ENISA, just a month ago, has released a cyber skills framework to identify 12 specific profiles for the cyber security. That's a different kind of a profile, from cyber expert in cyber educator, cyber researcher, cyber policy, cyber legal. So, as Director Baldoni said last week, cybersecurity is a mindset. We have to collect a team with different kind of expertise. So what, in your opinion, from your point of view in your country, could offer in this also job market for the young people? Ambassador, if you want first.
In Estonia, we are lacking some 10,000 IT engineers. and we are just 1.3 million people. So we have quite advanced industry, and this is something that we are really tackling with. And luckily, we also have a private sector coming into play. So we also have quite many unicorns that are born in Estonia, and some of these businessmen, for example, have started their own IT college in one small Estonian town, and I have also a couple of friends studying there, and they're saying that it's really great. That's one thing. But at the same time, to attract the young people, we need to create more platforms for them to kind of show their ideas, their vision, their new crazy thoughts, because that's what we need in the end. A bit of out of the box thinking, thinking ahead. I mean, sometimes I feel I'm way too old already to work in kind of IT related topic. So we have been really good in Estonia also in organizing different hackathons, and we are especially good in actually taking these hackathons, the best solutions that these young people bring out, and then starting implementing immediately this. So our government has really taken many of these solutions and put this into use. So to create opportunities, and well, these platforms opportunities, and really to show that what these young people are doing is actually useful.
I mean, this time it's my turn to say money as a reply. Well, it's a global issue, and there's a huge competition worldwide. I mean, months ago I read a tweet by CISA in the US that was advertising that they were hiring and they were paying number of zeros of dollars a year, and saying this is big even for this is big for by American public administration standards. So if even they advertise it this way, it means that it's really a global race to attract the best talents. So the agency is aware of that, and they have established a plan for recruiting also. But then there is also the big question and the other big part, that is the training and the education system that needs to be up to face these new challenges.
So in Israel, with regards to cyber, the golden triangle is a combination of industry, academy, and government activities being done together. And when I refer to academy, I refer not only to universities, but also to schools. So when a decision was taken to invest and enlarge and extend the activities that we're doing in cyber, additional budgets were defined in order to promote the capabilities and the skills of the younger generation, in order also to create the manpower of the future days. So we have programs starting at schools with either cyber specific classrooms that are to part of the children. We have programs that are focused in the periphery in order to bring the periphery. Israel is not very big, but still we have periphery. They're very, very small. So to bring the periphery also to the same level. And with the academy, we have different programs that are focused and related to cyber.
Thank you. For us is a very important theme. Indeed, many measures of our strategies are aimed not only at enhancing cybersecurity skills, but also at retaining those skills at national level within the country. So we started many activities, and also the ACN is sponsoring initiatives. We can just to mention a few, the cyberchallenge.it, which is a sort of talent initiatives in order to select the best young, we can say young people. It's directed at young from school and universities also, in order to develop the skills and just also make it easier for them to start a career in the cybersecurity sector. But also we sponsored another activity in collaboration with the Lazio region. This is called the ACL Cybersecurity Academy. So there are 3 courses that have been elaborated, and these on the basis of cyber skills and professional profiles that were developed in a framework elaborated by ENISA, and that was just mentioned before. And so essentially we collaborate not only with the schools and universities, but also with local entities at regional level mainly, but also with the industry association like Confindustria. And this is what I mentioned, the whole of society approach involving the citizenship in those activities is very, very important. And of course, it will be complemented with also awareness campaign.
Okay, thank you all of you. If there is some other questions, we are available. So speak now. or no. Or no. It was a very full of information session. I can understand for the young people, but let me say this was also a great occasion for you to have a very overview with experts working on this field, on the ground, this field. So if anyone is not ready to make a question, I can thank you all, thank you for your attention, and thank you for your interesting, insightful speech and explanation of the role of cybersecurity. And what can say, see you in another meeting and for another seminar. Thank you all of you.